Reason number one, your first attempt is always the most beautiful attempt. This is where you are very confident. This is where you are very passionate as well. And this is where you genuinely want to excel in the civil services examination. But unfortunately, or God forbid, if you don't clear this exam in your first attempt, failure becomes acceptable. You think, if I could not clear this exam in my first attempt, I've got second attempt, third attempt, fourth, fifth, and all attempts have been exhausted. So first attempt is always the most beautiful attempt. If you don't clear in your first attempt, failure becomes acceptable. It's for these two reasons you should always assume that I've got only one attempt to clear the civil services examination. But now there is another question on your mind. Is it possible to clear this exam in first attempt? People say that this is the world's toughest examination. If somebody is telling you that civil services examination is the world's toughest examination, don't believe him. If somebody is telling you that clearing the civil services exam is a 2-year project, 3-year project, 4-year project, don't believe him. Majority of the people, and this is something that I'm telling you with utmost confidence and utmost clarity as well. This is the exam. Majority of the people who have cleared this exam, they have cleared in their first attempt. If they can clear it, so can you. So if somebody is telling you that this is the world's toughest exam, don't believe it. If somebody is telling you that this exam cannot be cleared in first attempt, don't believe it. This is the exam that you can, you should clear in your first attempt. And for that, you have to keep three things in mind. There are three important prerequisites, three important ingredients for success. Number one, motivation. What is motivation? Somewhere, or whether you are in your must ask yourself when you want to start preparing for civil services examination. The first question should be why? Why is it so important for me to clear this exam? Can I live my life without clearing the civil services examination? Why is there a fire inside me that I want to, I should, I ought to clear the civil services exam? Because if you are clear, if you are self-motivated, there is no power on earth that can stop you from clearing this exam. Because this process is slightly difficult. Exam is not difficult, but the process is difficult. How is the process difficult? You'll have to start your preparation 1 year prior to the prelims examination. So if the prelims is in May, then you have to plan your preparation 1 year before your prelims examination. Then there is mains examination. Then there is this interview or the personality test. Because this examination is a 3-tier examination structure. There is prelims, there is mains, and then there is interview or the personality test. The process is difficult because if you don't clear your prelims exam, then you will have to start afresh. Even if you clear the mains, but you could not clear the interview, even then you have to go back and appear in the prelims examination in your next attempt. The process is difficult. And if the process is difficult, sometimes you'll bang your head. What am I getting myself into? I was happy in a job. I was happy at a college. I was happy at a university. I was happy doing nothing in my life. But this is something that I'm not able to do. This is something that I can't do. This is where your motivation will play a very important role. That's what Muhammad Ali said, the famous boxer. Muhammad Ali said, I hated every second of my training. But I told myself, suffer now and live the rest of the life like a champion. And he did it. So you have to keep yourself motivated. Motivation can be anything. I want to serve my nation. That's motivation. I want to serve my society. That's motivation. I want to realize the aspirations, the dreams of my parents. That's also motivation. I want to teach a lesson to this very irritating uncle in my neighborhood who says that I'm good for nothing. I will prove that this is the world's most lucrative exam that I've cleared. So I want to teach him a lesson. I want to prove to the world that I'm capable of clearing the most important, beautiful, lucrative examination. You have to have self motivation. So, motivation is the key to success. And once you're motivated, then comes ingredient number two, prerequisite number two, and that is discipline. What do we mean by discipline? One of the most important things for you to clear this examination must be discipline. And when I say discipline, that means you need to have a schedule, you need to have a timetable, and stick to it. There is this old cliche that people normally use. If you fail to plan, you are primarily planning to fail. Planning is key to success. Create a timetable, create a schedule, and stick to it. Start with minimal expectations. That today I will read one chapter from modern history, I will read a newspaper, I will practice one answer writing session. But stick to this slowly and steadily. Once you are in a position to meet this target, to abide by the timetable, to stick to this timetable, slowly and steadily, your confidence will be lifted, boosted, and you will be in a position to clear this exam. Because what is needed to clear this exam? There is a well defined syllabus for this exam. All you need to do, cover everything that is mentioned in the syllabus. Problem solved. But how can you complete the entire syllabus for this examination? For that, break it down into various modules. Break it down into a suitable timetable. Create a schedule, stick to it, and there is no reason why you can't clear this examination. Am I making it too simple for you? Because it is simple. It is simple to clear this exam. That is why every year 700, 800, 900, 1,000 people, depending upon the vacancies, clear this exam. So if they can clear this exam, why can't you? My intention also is to boost your confidence. I don't want somebody to tell you that this is the toughest examination, so you should stop dreaming about a career in civil services. Don't let your dreams die, and don't let someone else dictate what is good for you and what you can dream. So, if there are three ingredients to success, three prerequisites to clear the civil services examination: number one, motivation; number two, discipline; and number three, guidance. What do we mean by guidance? Somebody telling you this is the world's toughest examination, he is misguiding you. Somebody telling you that this is a 3-year project, you will clear this exam in your second attempt, fifth attempt, is misguiding you. Who can tell you how to study. Who can also address a very important question: what not to study. You need a proper guide. You need a mentor who can tell you how should you write your answers. There, you need a mentor who can tell you what should be the structure of your answer. You need a mentor who can tell you what should be your optional subject. This mentor, this guidance is very crucial part in your success. So, what are we talking about? The purpose, the intention of this workshop is that you should have an absolute clarity what this exam is all about and what it takes to clear this exam in your single attempt. You might have noticed that you can always chat with our subject matter experts, with our educational counselors. If any doubt that you've got, just chat with our counselors, chat with our subject matter experts, and they are more than happy to help you. So you can always interact during this session with our subject matter experts, with our counselors. Now let's delve deep into this. There is an organization called Union Public Service Commission, or Unpredictable Public Service Commission. UPSC is the central recruiting agency of the government of India. And every year, UPSC conducts an examination called Civil Services Examination. And if you clear the Civil Services Examination, you can be an IAS, can be an IPS, you can be an Indian Foreign Service Officer, you can be an Indian Revenue Service Officer, and there are multiple civil services that you can be part of. This civil services examination is primarily a three-tiered examination structure, something that I told you. There is prelims, followed by mains examination or main examination, and then there is this interview or personality test. Prelims is objective based. That means multiple choice questions. There will be questions, four options. You will have to pick the right answer. You will have to pick the most appropriate answer. In mains, you will have to write answers, descriptive answers. 100 words, 150 words, 200 words, 250 words, depending upon the requirement of the question. An interview is oral. You will be judged by a panel of experts and you will be judged whether you are suitable for a career in civil services or not. Let's first look at prelims, then mains, and then we will jump to the interview. When we look at the prelims examination, this prelims examination consists of two objective based papers or multiple choice questions based papers. One is GS, General Studies. The other is CSAT, Civil Services Aptitude Test. CSAT is something which was introduced for the first time in the year 2011. But this CSAT is qualifying in nature. What do we mean by that? GS consists of 200 marks. CSAT is also of 200 marks. In GS there are 100 questions. In CSAT there are 80 questions. But in CSAT, you only need to qualify this exam. How can you qualify CSAT? By scoring 66 marks. That means qualifying marks for CSAT is 66. If you score 66, that means you have qualified CSAT. That means your GS paper shall be evaluated. But whether you scored 66 or 199.66 doesn't matter, because these marks in CSAT will not be counted. Whether you are going to appear in the next stage, mains examination, it entirely depends upon the marks that you score in GS. So prelims consists of two papers: GS, General Studies; CSAT, Civil Services Aptitude Test. But this CSAT is qualifying in nature. That means out of 200 marks, you will have to score 66. If you score less than 66, you are out of the game. You cannot go beyond prelims examination. If you score more than 66, then your GS paper will be evaluated. And the marks that you score in GS shall determine whether you are going to appear in the next stage or not, in the main stage or not. So it entirely depends upon the marks that you score in GS, whether you are eligible to appear in the mains examination or not. But the CSAT, some people are still worried about it, or there are some aspirants who are scared of CSAT. If you are, stay with me. This CSAT, UPSC tells us the standard of question. That means the kind of questions that you should expect in CSAT is something of the matriculation 10th standard. In CSAT, questions are asked on mathematics, logical reasoning, quantitative aptitude, sometimes decision making, sometimes there will be questions on mental ability, reasoning, English comprehension. There is a passage. At the end of the passage, there are 4 questions or 5 questions. So you will have to answer these questions based on the information that is provided in the paragraph. So it is very simple paper because the standard is of 10 and you don't have to score maximum marks in this paper. All you need to do is score 66 because these marks will not be counted. Whether you will appear in the mains exam or not will be based on the marks that you score in GS. Even then, scared or worried about CSAT. And there are two types, two categories of aspirants who are scared of CSAT. One, because of maths. And there are others who are scared of CSAT because of English comprehension. If you are scared or worried about CSAT because of maths, there is a formula for you. Don't study maths. Don't study maths at all. Why? Look at the kind of questions asked in CSAT. If you take a look at the question paper from 2011 onwards till 2020, you will see sometimes 4 questions from mathematics, sometimes 5, sometimes 6, sometimes 7. Let's put the number at 10. Let's assume that there are 10 questions asked from mathematics in your CSAT. 10 into 2.5 is equal to 25. Forget about these 25 marks. Focus on the remaining 175. And out of 175, aspire for 66 plus. That means if you are worried about CSAT because of mathematics, don't study it. Don't waste your time. Don't focus on mathematics at all. Focus on other aspects of CSAT. Skip mathematics. But if you are worried about CSAT because of English comprehension, this is a genuine reason to worry. Why? Because sometimes 40% questions are asked from English comprehension, sometimes 50% as well. So if you're not good at answering these passage-based questions from English language, then it becomes very difficult for you to reach this magic number of 66. Even then, you should not be worried. Why? Because for the next 1 year or for the next months, when you will start preparing for this examination, you will have to read something called the Hindu, a newspaper, or the Indian Express. Basically, you will have to read a national newspaper, and when you read a national newspaper, your English comprehension is automatically taken care of. So you don't have to target English language as a standalone subject. That I have to cover English comprehension subject in this particular month. No, make it a gradual process, because you are in any case going to read the newspapers, and by reading the newspapers, initially it will be difficult for you to understand what is mentioned in this newspaper article. What is the writer exactly trying to convey in this article, in this column? Slowly and steadily, you will understand the gist of this newspaper article. Slowly and steadily, you will understand the context of this newspaper article. So, if you are preparing for GS by reading the newspapers, in turn, what you are doing, unintentionally also, what you're doing, you are covering the English portion of your CSAT as well. Long story short, in prelims, there is this paper called CSAT. Majority of the people, they're not worried about CSAT. They think that CSAT is going to be a cakewalk for us. And it is true as well. Because majority of the people who appear in the civil services examination, they're engineers. So they are good at CSAT, and ultimately they clear CSAT without much fuss. But then there are others who are slightly worried about CSAT, who are slightly scared of CSAT. But even then, do one thing. Take a look at the CSAT papers 2011 onwards. Go to the UPSC website, download previous year's question papers, solve them. If on your own, without any coaching, without any guidance, you are scoring 80 plus, that means you don't have to worry about CSAT at all. CSAT is going to be a cakewalk for you. But if you're scoring less than 80, then it is a cause for concern. But even then, if you're scoring less than 80, you will also have a clarity that I'm scoring less in mental ability, in data interpretation, in logical reasoning, in English comprehension, so that you can start focusing on your weak areas, on your weak points. And if you devote 1 month of your preparation time to CSAT, believe me, trust me, CSAT is going to be a key for you. only qualifying in nature. All you need to do, score 66 out of the 200. Whether you score 66 or 199.66 doesn't matter, because these marks are not counted. Whether you are going to appear in the mains exam or not will be entirely based on the marks that you score in GS. So general studies prelims will determine whether you are going to appear in the mains examination or not. When we look at prelims and the GS part of prelims, let's here combine the prelims GS part and the mains GS part. And I'll tell you why. If you look at the prelims examination, there are four major subjects that you will have to cover. One is polity, the other is economics, the third one is history, and history includes art and culture, ancient India, medieval India, modern India. Then we have geography, includes Indian geography, world geography as well. Then there are two big subjects whose prominence is increasing day by day, because UPSC tends to ask more questions from these two areas. One is environment and ecology, the other is science and technology. And then there is current affairs. Current affairs basically whatever is happening in India, whatever is happening outside India, but it has an impact on India, that becomes relevant for your examination. Donald Trump has lost the election. Joe Biden is going to be the next president of the United States of America. What are going to be the policies of Joe Biden vis-a-vis India? Is Joe Biden going to be good for India, or Joe Biden is going to be worse for India? Because Joe Biden's election is going to have an impact on the India-US relationship. This is current affairs. This is something that is ongoing. This is something which is relevant for your examination. This is what prelims exam is all about. So 200 marks, 100 questions will be asked. Every question carries 2 marks, and there will be questions on Indian polity, geography, economics, history, environment and ecology, science and technology, current affairs, and cutoff varies. That means out of 200, sometimes the cutoff is 98. Sometimes the cutoff is 107. Sometimes the cutoff is 110. It depends upon the number of vacancies that we have. Number one, if the vacancies are huge, the cutoff will be less. If the vacancies are less, cutoff will be high. It also depends upon the difficulty level of the question paper. If the difficulty level is low, the cutoff will be high. If the difficulty level is high, the cutoff will be low. But when we look at the mains examination, in mains examination we have GS paper 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we have an essay paper, and then we have an optional subject. Optional subject of your choice. We also have 2 compulsory papers. And these are 2 compulsory language papers. One is English, the other is any Indian language. Any Indian language can be Hindi, can be Urdu, can be Tamil, can be Malayalam, can be any language. But the point is, these 2 compulsory papers are similar to CSAT. CSAT is objective based, but the mains examination is all about subjective. That means you'll have to write descriptive answers, subjective answers in 100 words, 200 words, 250 words. So these 2 compulsory papers are not like CSAT. That's not that these 2 compulsory papers are also objective based, MCQ based. No. These 2 compulsory papers are like CSAT because these 2 papers are also qualifying in nature. And what do we mean by qualifying in nature? That means all you need to do You need to score 25% in these two compulsory papers. Both these papers are of 300 marks. And all you need to do, you need to score 25% in English, 25% in any Indian language paper. And if you score more than 25, your other papers will be evaluated. But whether you score 25% or 99.25% doesn't matter, because these marks will not be counted. Whether you are going to appear before the interview panel or not will be entirely based on the marks that you score in mains examination. In these subjects, these marks will not be counted, they are only qualifying in nature. But when we look at this part and compare it with the prelims for GS, this is where we come across something very, very interesting. The kind of papers and subjects that you have to study for prelims, they are there in mains exam as well. Polity is there in prelims. Polity is part of GS paper 2. Economics is there in prelims. It's part of GS paper 3. History and geography part of prelims. They're part of GS paper 1 as well. Environment and ecology, science and technology, part of prelims, part of GS paper 3 as well. And current affairs is present everywhere, whether it is prelims or mains. So that means whatever you have to study for your prelims examination, that is something that you will have to study for your mains examination as well. So then what is the difference between prelims and mains? Yes, prelims is about MCQs, multiple choice questions. Mains is about writing answers in 100 words, 150 words, 200 words, 250 words. Apart from this, what is the difference between prelims and mains? Because if you understand this difference, there is no power on earth that can stop you from clearing this examination. What is the difference? The difference is that prelims is about two things. One, it's about facts. Two, it's about concepts. Mains is also about two things. Mains is about analysis, and mains is about elaboration. Listen to me carefully, because if you understand this difference, there is no power on earth that can stop you from clearing this exam. The kind of subjects and topics that you have to study for prelims, similar topics, similar subjects in your mains exam as well. There are some subjects which are purely mains based. That means they are of no relevance for your prelims. They are only relevant for your mains exam. For example, world history, only for mains examination. Similarly, India after independence, only for mains examination. Social justice and social issues, primarily for your mains examination. Similarly, you have GS paper 4, which talks about ethics, integrity, aptitude, primarily for your mains examination. Similarly, we have disaster management, primarily for your mains examination. That means there are some subjects which are exclusively for mains examination. Barring few subjects, almost everything you have to study both for prelims as well as for mains examination. Then what's the difference between prelims and mains? Prelims is about two things. UPSC will judge you whether you have the factual knowledge or not. UPSC will judge you whether you have the conceptual clarity or not. UPSC will judge you on your facts, on your concepts when it comes to the prelims examination. When it comes to the mains examination, UPSC will ask you to analyze. Analyze what? Same facts and concepts that you've studied for the prelims examination. Elaborate. Elaborate what? Same facts and concepts that you've studied for the examination. How? Let me give you an example. Or let me give you two examples, and then this differentiation will be absolutely clear to you. Let's say, for example, there is a tussle going on between the governor of West Bengal and the chief minister of West Bengal. So, governor is somebody who is in news. Governor is a topic in Indian polity. Indian polity is part of your prelims as well. Indian polity is part of your GS paper 2 mains as well. But this topic, government, will be tackled by UPSC differently when it comes to prelims, will be tackled by UPSC differently when it comes to mains examination. How? In prelims, your facts and concepts will be judged. In mains, elaboration, analysis of the same facts and concepts that you've studied for prelims. How? UPSC will ask you, or might ask you in your prelims examination, consider the following statements regarding the office of governor and which of the following statements are correct. Right? In order to be appointed as the governor of a state, one should be more than 30 years of age. Is that true or not? This is where UPSC will judge you. Constitution says in order to be appointed as the governor of a state, you should not be the resident of that state to which you are appointed. That means if you are to be appointed to West Bengal, you should not be from West Bengal, you should be from outside of the state. Are these two statements correct? This is where some people will be confused. A governor can be appointed to a state if his age is more than 30 years. This statement is wrong. Why? Because Constitution says that in order to be appointed as the governor of a state, the age crossed should be 35. That means if you are the citizen of India, you have completed 35 years of age, you are eligible to be appointed as the governor of a state. So 30 years is wrong. Statement number 2. It's not mentioned in the Constitution. Constitution has got only two qualifications for a governor. Qualification number 1, you should be the citizen of India. Qualification number 2, you should have completed 35 years of age. If you are a citizen of India, you have completed 35 years of age, you are eligible to be appointed as the governor of a state. This condition, that governor to West Bengal should not be from West Bengal, this is not mentioned in the Constitution. Constitution does not talk about this qualification. It is only a convention. Convention means unwritten rule, something which is not mentioned anywhere, but something that we follow. There is a convention that whenever the president has to appoint a governor to a state, chief minister of that state should be consulted. It's not mentioned anywhere, but it's a convention, an unwritten rule that we follow. And there is also another convention. If the governor to West Bengal is to be appointed, this governor should not be from West Bengal. If the governor from Karnataka should be appointed, you should not be from Karnataka. This is a convention, unwritten rule. That means facts, concepts will be judged, tested by UPSC when it comes to prelims examination, or mains examination. Same office of governor, same subject, GS paper 2. The question can be, the office of governor is a relic of colonial era and should be abolished. Critically analyze, discuss, elaborate, justify. That means same topic government, same subject Indian polity. But the treatment to this topic government would be different when it comes to prelims exam, would be different when it comes to the mains examination. So prelims is about facts, concepts. Mains is about elaboration, analysis of what? Of the same facts and concepts that you have studied for your prelims examination. One more example, and then it should be absolutely clear to you what is the difference between prelims and mains examination. Let's say, for example, there are people protesting against these three farm acts. What is it that you will have to understand is relevant for your examination? Not only because it is current affairs topic, because what is happening right now, currently, that's part of current affairs. Clear? And current affairs is an important aspect for your prelims as well as mains. So the protests against these three farm acts, it's part of your current affairs, but not only current affairs. It's also part of your Indian polity. It's also part of your social issue, because farmers' issue is not only a political issue, an economic issue, it's also a social issue because far more suicides are taking place. And this topic is relevant for your economic subject as well. So you have to look at these protests from multiple angles, from polity angle, economics angle, social issues angle, legal angle, multiple angles. But how? Let's say, for example, this topic is relevant for your prelims as well. This topic is relevant for your mains examination as well. What about prelims? What can UPSC judge you, test you when it comes to these three farm protests or these three farm acts against which protests are going on in this country? UPSC will judge you like this. There is something called distribution of powers. What is distribution of powers? Center, states. Powers are distributed. Center means Parliament of India. States means state legislative assemblies. Or center means President, Prime Minister, his ministers. States means Governor, Chief Minister, his ministers. Constitution has said there should be distribution of powers. That means on some areas, only Parliament should have the power to make laws. On some areas, states should have the power to make laws. That is something that we call 7th schedule of the Constitution. This 7th schedule of the Constitution talks about this distribution of powers, and it talks about three lists: union list, state list, concurrent list. That means all the items mentioned in the union list, only Parliament will have the power to make laws. All the items mentioned in the state list, state legislatures will have the power to make laws. And when it comes to the items mentioned in the concurrent list, both Parliament as well as state legislatures, they have the power to make laws. For example, in union list we have defense, foreign policy, citizenship. On all these matters, only the Parliament has the power to make laws. Another important subject is interstate trade and commerce. That means trade and commerce interstate, between states. This is an area which the Constitution has given to the Parliament. That means Parliament of India can make a law on interstate trade and commerce. When it comes to state list, for example, police, law and order, gambling, agriculture. On agriculture, who has the power to make laws? State legislatures. Similarly, concurrent list. Who has the power to make laws? Both Parliament as well as state list. So there can be multiple types of questions, but I can give you example of two types of questions that can be asked. One type of question can be, under the distribution of powers, which of the following items are mentioned in state list? Number one, agriculture is part of state list. Number two, markets and fairs, it's also part of state list. Number three, intrastate trade and commerce. That means trade, production of goods, supply of goods, distribution of goods, intrastate, within a state, trade and commerce. This is the right given to state legislature. Now you have to have absolute clarity. There is a difference between interstate trade and commerce, intrastate trade and commerce. So if people are protesting against the Farm Acts, that means the Parliament of India has made a law on agriculture. How can Parliament make a law on agriculture? Because this is under the control of state legislature. This is where your facts should be clear, your concepts should be clear. Also, Punjab Legislative Assembly, recently they passed few laws which basically overturned the laws passed by the Parliament on these Farm Acts. Because primarily, any law which is passed on any subject mentioned in the concurrent list, both parliament as well as state legislatures, they will have the power to make laws. But in case parliament has also made a law on this subject, state legislatures also have passed a law on this subject, which law will prevail? Parliamentary law which will prevail. Or state legislatures law can prevail if president gives consent. That means very briefly, there are people protesting against these three farm acts. This topic is relevant for your prelims as well as for your mains examination. But what all should you understand from these topics, from these controversies? And how should you approach prelims and how should you approach mains examination? When it comes to the prelims examination, your facts and concepts should be clear. When it comes to mains examination, you will have to elaborate, you will have to analyze same facts and concepts that you have studied for the prelims examination. So if I was a student, how would I, as a civil services aspirant, look at these protests against the three farm acts? Question number one, in distribution of powers, agriculture is in state list, markets and fairs is part of state list, production, supply, distribution of goods within a state is part of state list. So how can parliament make a law on these subjects? Okay. There are three farm acts that the parliament has passed. One talks about that farmers are now allowed to sell their produce outside of the APMC mandis as well. What are these APMC mandis? What will happen if the farmers are allowed to sell their produce outside of the APMC mandis? There are few states in India, at least two states in India, where we don't have these APMC mandis. Which are these two states? How APMC mandis protects farmers? What is this minimum support price that everybody seems to be talking about? Are these laws good or bad? What are the good points about these laws? What are the bad points about these laws? Because every law, every policy will have some advantages, will have some disadvantages, will have some pros, will have some cons. And as civil service aspirants, you should be dispassionate by looking at issues. And you should dispassionately look at an issue from positive angle as well as the negative angle. That is how you will have to cover these three farm acts. And by passing these three farm acts, isn't Parliament violating distribution of powers? And if this distribution of powers is violated, are we not weakening federalism in India? This can be relevant for your mains examination. And if this distinction is clear to you, that what is the difference between prelims and mains exam, there is no reason why you can't clear this civil services examination. So what should be the approach? Prepare for prelims and mains simultaneously. If you start preparing for prelims and leave out mains, you won't be in a position to clear this examination. So prelims and mains, they have to be integrated together. That is what we call it bijujsi, an integrated approach towards prelims and mains. Solve them, address them, tackle them, integrated manner. Prelims and mains should not be separated from each other. Prelims and mains should be studied together. So this is part of prelims. And if you clear prelims exam by crossing this cutoff, you are eligible to appear before the mains examination. And the marks that you score in mains exam will determine whether you are going to appear before the interview or not. And here, even this prelims is qualifying in nature. Qualifying in the sense that if the cutoff is 98, if you are scoring 98, well and good, you are eligible to appear before the mains examination. But even if you score 198 out of 200, doesn't matter, because these marks will not be added. Whether you are going to clear the entire civil service examination or not, that will be entirely based on the marks that you score in interview and the mains. So mains marks plus interview marks, add them together. That is going to determine whether you are clearing the civil services exam or not. That is going to determine whether you are going to become an IAS, IPS, foreign service, revenue service officer or not. So mains plus interview will determine your rank, will determine your success. And which part of mains? These two compulsory papers also are qualifying in nature, and these papers shall determine GS 1 to 4, essay, and optional subject. These subjects will determine whether you are clearing this examination or not. Another important point that you must keep in mind, although all subjects, all papers are equal, but there are some papers which are more equal than others. If you devote more attention to these papers, not only will you clear the exam, you will clear with a good rank as well. Which are these three areas that you will have to focus more on? One is essay, the second is your ethics paper, your GS paper 4, and the third one is your optional subject. But now there can be a question on your minds, and this is a general question that people ask. How do we choose an optional subject? And if you're somebody who is yet to decide his or her optional subject, I'll tell you a template. And this template you can use in deciding and choosing an optional subject. There are three criteria that you will have to keep in mind while choosing an optional subject. One is interest. And what is this interest? Let's say, for example, you have to take one subject as optional subject. If you are not interested in that subject, after a week you will change your subject. Still you are not interested, after another week you will change another subject. After another week you will change another subject. And by the end of the year you have covered all subjects mentioned by the UPSC, but of absolutely no value. So interest is very important. Because if you look at UPSC, UPSC stands for Union Public Service Commission. But with all humility, UPSC is also lying. How? UPSC lies. UPSC says that the standard of questions asked in your optional subject would be 1 degree higher than your graduation standard, 1 degree lower than your post-graduation standard. That means the standard of questions asked in your optional subject will be of honors. That means this is a graduation standard, 1 standard higher. This is PG level, 1 standard lower. This is honors level. This is the standard of the questions that will be asked by UPSC in your optional subject. And if you look at and analyze these question papers, the standard of the questions is of PG level. And a post-graduation degree takes 2 years. Is it possible that a course, a degree, a post-graduation degree, which normally takes 2 years of your life, you will have to cover for civil services examination the same syllabus, the same subject, that too in 2 to 3 months? Which means I'm saying that here is an optional subject, let's say sociology, let's say political science and international relations. Normally, the standard of questions asked in sociology optional would be of PG level, MA sociology level. Clear? But MA sociology takes 2 years. It's a 2-year degree course. But here for the civil services examination, we are saying that you will have to cover sociology in 2 months, 3 months, maximum 4 months. Is it possible? It is possible. Why? Because people have done that in the past. And so can you. That means you don't have an alibi. You don't have a choice. The only choice that you have is you should have interest. Take interest in this subject. If you are interested in this subject, you will study this subject more and you will have no qualms. You will have no reason whatsoever that you can't excel in this examination. Second, That means first important criteria that you will have to keep in mind while choosing an option is that you should be interested in that subject. If you're interested, second criteria that is very important, this subject should have a short syllabus. Why? Because if the standard of the question is of PG level, PG normally takes 2 years, but you'll have to cover the subject in 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. The only way in which you can cover every single topic mentioned in the syllabus is the syllabus is short. Let's say, for example, history. I would personally not recommend history as an optional subject to anybody, even if that person is my enemy. Don't take history as your optional subject because there is no beginning to history. There is no end to history. That means the syllabus is very vast. Take a look at the subject which you are interested in, where you are interested in. Second, the syllabus should be short. And third criteria, this subject should be scoring as well. Because ultimately, what is your intention? The intention is you should maximize your marks so that your name appears at the top of the list or in the top 100, top 150, so that you can be an IAS or an IPS or an Indian Foreign Service officer. That's the ultimate aim. You don't want to conduct researches in your optional subject. You just want to score good so that you're able to clear this exam, that too with a good rank. And for that, the subject should be scored. By looking at this criteria, there are few subjects that come to my mind. If you are good in a literature subject, please opt for it. Literature, Tamil,